every Thursday at 6:30 p.m. on Facebook and on YouTube. And in addition, we are also aired on Radio 365 Grenada. It will be our pleasure to host you in this show. We talk about life, things that matter to persons in life, and things that are necessary to be discussed. Others may not discuss them, but join us 6:30 p.m. Living Life God's Way.
Hello, good evening to you. Welcome to another edition of Living Life God's Way. We're glad that you are here with us. We're glad that you are participating of this fun evening and this fun discussion that we're going to have this evening. I welcome you wherever you are across the world, whether it's daytime or nighttime. I welcome you to Living Life God's Way. Pastor Sophie.
Good evening, everyone, and I echo the sentiments of Pastor Brian. Welcome to Living Life God's Way. We're so happy that you're tuned in for us. And as he said, we're discussing life lessons. So we're excited to talk about that. So engage with us in the comments. And once again, welcome.
All right. So we're like I said, we're looking forward to an exciting discussion this evening on the lessons of life or life lessons. There are many things that life had taught us or will teach us as we maneuver through it. And that's what we want to talk about tonight. So feel free to share your thoughts, feel free to share your comments and so on. What's on your mind, you can feel free to send us and let's see what you're saying this evening on life lessons. So Pastor Sophie, do you want to get this ball rolling or should I get this ball rolling?
I think we should start with you, Pastor Brian. We should start with you.
All right, so we came up with some things or some different aspects of life, or so each of us chose a topic. So my topic was love. So that's what I'm going to talk about, or rather, that's what we're going to discuss a few minutes. So love. So when we think of love, we think of the lessons that love can teach us, or the lessons that love can teach us in life. And one of the lessons that I have learned personally is love is not about you feel gooey, as we call it, or you feel a sense of yucky. so love is not just saying it, like saying I love you. And I know I'm not only talking about relationships here. I'm talking in general. So it's simply not just saying I love you and I can't wait to see you kind of thing. There's much more to love than that. There's much more depth to love. So my experience has been, let me first say I was one of those people who when I heard of love, my first thought was emotion. My first thought is I can't wait to see you. My first thought is, wow, you get all of those what we call sentimental feelings. But that was my initial concept or thought of love. So I have matured since then, Pastor Sophie, and to our viewers, I have matured since then, and I've come into some understanding, or rather, I've come into some more understanding. I want to say welcome to Dr. Patricia. Looking all lovely this evening.
Hello, Dr. Patricia.
Oh, Dr. Patricia, we're not hearing you. I'm not sure how come but we're not hearing you. No. So you may have to go out and come back in again. So Pastor was saying that, I was one of those persons who thought that love was more about emotion and love was more about how you feel. And then what puzzled me in that time, though, Pastor Sophia, was when I feel that way and then tomorrow I feel a different way. I used to be questioning myself. So am I still in love today? Am I still in love the same way that I was in love yesterday? So it caused me to be in a place of trying to figure out, okay, love. Am I supposed to feel this way today? Do I feel this way tomorrow? And if I don't feel gooey and and all of that tomorrow, then what happens? So that was
Right.
my initial concept of love. I'll allow you to jump in here, Pastor Sophie, and share your thoughts on my subject, my topic.
Right. So I think life teaches us various things. And when it comes to love and relationships, it's no different. And like anyone who would have been through a period of love, or even if you would have been married and then divorced, or you're still married, or you have a fiance or something like that, you would find that life teaches you certain things, and what you would have considered 5, 6, 7 years ago, through experience, you would now have a different entity. What I can say is, when it comes to love, I think we look at love more oftentimes on an emotional basis. So as you say, we feel the goosebumps, we feel the heart racing, we feel I can't wait to meet this person. I want to talk to this person morning, noon, and night. And sometimes when sticky situations arise, when difficult situations arise, when complications arise, we realize that there is more to love. There is more to love than the feeling. There is communication, there is loyalty, there is trust, there is talking things out. So Pastor Brian, I'm going to ask you, welcome, Dr. Patricia. Can you hear us?
I can hear you really well. I hope you're hearing me now.
Yes.
Perfectly. So
Excellent.
Pastor Brian chose the topic of love. All right.
Very brave, Pastor Brian. Yeah.
I said the same thing, Dr. Patricia. Very brave. So my question to Pastor Brian will be, what are some of the lessons that you have learned in your period of time about love?
Mhm. Well, let me answer that by saying I've learned that love is consistency. Love is a decision that you make. You
Right.
make a decision to love. You know, you don't see it as emotion, because when something happens and you don't feel that emotion, it doesn't mean
Right.
that love has disappeared or doesn't exist. Love is very present, but it is more about the commitment, or more about being responsible and so on. So that's what I have learned. I mean, you really move away from, and I'm not, don't get me wrong, and I know there are ladies who are on who may want to jump in my neck, but let me make this emphatically clear. I'm not saying that you don't feel emotional about it. I am just saying that you're not governed by the emotion. The emotion does not determine what you do or don't do. Because for case in point, let's say I said I'm in love, and then you make me upset, and I decided I'm not doing anything for you today. I'm upset with you, so don't call me, don't talk to me, anything. Then that's not love, because love is consistent. So whether you are upset, whether you are angry, love remains the same. So that's why I've concluded that it is a decision that you make to love, and you hold that responsibility there, and you appropriate it when necessary or as necessary, and so on. So it's not about the emotion, but more about the commitment. And then when you think about the Bible, before you ladies jump in, the Bible says love is patient, love is kind, it does not behave itself unseemly, it seeketh not our own, it's long suffering, and so on. So there are all of these different things, because I mean, Pastor Sophie and Dr. Patricia, I spent time, going through this thing, because I had to figure out this thing and work it out. I had to get to the bottom of this mystery called love. So I spent time, looking at it. Okay, God, so and try to work out First Corinthians chapter 13, and what does it mean, and the consistency of it, and how do you know when you feel like, and all of these things. I spent a lot of time going through it, because I had to get it right. I had to understand it. So that's where I am today, ladies.
Right. Dr. Patricia, you go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, love is such a huge topic. And I just want to congratulate and say, well done, Pastor Brian, on picking that topic because it's a big one. But I want to talk a little bit about love and being in love, because you mentioned love and then you mentioned being in love. And so the example you gave, you're in love with somebody and then they do something to upset you. And then you think, okay, I'm not going to do this because you've upset me. But I think being in love is quite different from love. And I think if you're in a long-term relationship, it more than likely started with being in love. All the feelings that Pastor Sapphira was just saying about, you can't wait to speak to this person, you can't wait to see them. And usually, Pastor Brian, when you're in love, they don't do anything wrong because they're perfect. They're the most perfect gentleman. She's the most beautiful woman in the world. She doesn't do anything wrong. And he doesn't do anything wrong because we are seeing them through different eyes. We actually call it an altered state of consciousness, because when you're walking on the street, the sky is extra blue and the sea is extra green and life is just altogether beautiful. It's just great being alive because being in love makes you feel that way. You know, it's really a heightened sense of emotion. But I think, when we continue in that relationship, and we allow those feelings to develop and mature, I think that's when actual love begins. Because when you're in love with somebody who doesn't really exist, because that person is not perfect. They have got their faults, they've got their flaws, they have their foibles, but you just can't see it because you're so taken with them. And so I think it's where the love comes when we begin to observe their character. And when we begin to see that, as you were referring to 1 Corinthians 13, 12, is that despite what they do, love is patient, love is kind. Love doesn't make a list of all the things you've done wrong. So if you're having a disagreement, you're not supposed to bring up what they did last year and the year before, right? Because you're not supposed to keep a list. But we all know that we do. And I would love to say that, yes, love is consistent. And I think that's what we're aiming for. But I believe that it's a journey, because I've been married for 37 years this year. And I would love to be able to tell you, yes, I'm going to get a prize any day now. I'm going to get a parade that's in my name, So I think that I would love to be able to say that because I love my husband, that I'm always consistent. But, that's not the truth, because I'm in my feelings. I have my emotions. And so when he does something, I have to let him know. That's how it works. I mean, that's real life, And I think it's useful to say how things are really. And then, at the end of the day, we do come back and say, okay, I didn't mean it like that. I was upset. Somebody did this to me and I overreacted. And so I don't know if it's consistent. I think in the end, it works out. We come back to, okay, that is my husband, that is my wife. So I need to go and apologize, because I don't want to sleep on the couch. I want to get back in the bed. So you need to right words. Okay. So I think love is kind of a journey. And I think it's a way of learning about ourselves and how we do life, because I really do think it's a journey. So it's such a big topic, Pastor Brian. I mean, we could talk about it from now throughout eternity. And we haven't even talked about the love of God. We haven't talked about the love of a mother. Because I would say a mother's love is pretty much close to being unconditional. Because mothers, no matter what, they will always keep on praying for that wayward son. They'll keep praying for that situation that looks like it's never, ever going to change. Moms just don't give up. They love you no matter how you look. Everybody thinks you're not all that handsome, but your mom thinks you are the most handsome son. She thinks you look great. And so I think, a mama's love is, quite spectacular. So it's such a big topic, Pastor Brian. We're going to have to keep this going, I think.
But you see, Dr. Patricia, because my subject has 6 more minutes before we move on to yours and
Oh,
Pastor Sophie.
not
So,
sure that
so we're
knows
doing like
it.
20 minutes for topic.
She
So
was
so
telling
yeah. Well, once it permits, that is. But Dr. Patricia, listen, I understand what you're saying about the commitment part, and
me.
and you mentioned the mother's love, but maybe that's
Yeah,
how our love ought to be patterned, like a mother's love, which is very much comparable to the love of Christ, because it is consistent, and like you said, somebody could not be so good looking, and your mother thinks you're beautiful, thinks
yeah,
you're handsome or whatever. So maybe that's what it really should be, where it knows no boundaries, it knows no any end. It is totally consistent. But you, as a mother, and you can correct me, as a mother, you decide, okay, I love this child not only because there's an emotional connection, but because I have a sense of responsibility to the child. Am I right?
I'm not sure that I love as responsibility. I don't feel that. I know that but that's not why I love him. It's just inherent. It's
Mhm.
inherent, you know. It's inherent.
Okay, Dr. Producer, but why? So why then is it inherent? Because the child comes from the mother.
Yeah, I think pretty much so. I think
Mhm,
pretty much so. You carried that child for how many months, and you delivered that child into the world. You raised them,
mhm,
and you have invested in them. But I cannot honestly say that it's a love. My feelings, my emotions are to do with responsibility. The
mhm,
love is just there. I think it's something supernatural. I think that's part of being a mother, really. They talk
mhm,
about a mother's instinct, don't they? They talk about that. So I wouldn't use the word responsible. I think the time and the care that I put in, yes, that's my responsibility, but I don't know if I love because I feel responsible. Yeah, I'm
okay.
just making that distinction. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just
Uh-huh.
saying that's not my feeling.
Yes, yes, yeah. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. I'm gonna uh, point my finger at Pastor Sophie now, because I know. You ladies, when it comes to love, we believe, or we are led to believe, based on what we see, that you guys put more emotion into it, while we guys are more logical. We analyze and we work out and stuff like that. But it doesn't say that we don't love, but you guys do more emotion. It seems to me. You all can correct me. It seems that way to me. So therefore, um, we're in a place where, okay, Dr. Patricia mentioned, as a mother, it almost seemed that if it's instinct to just love, but as a woman, isn't it instinct to don't you guys feel instinctive to love your partner? Is there any instinct there, or you feel, help me guys?
Not when he annoys me. No, the instinct doesn't work. No,
Dr. Patricia.
it's gone. It's vice versa. I annoy him too. I'm very good at it.
Hands up there, hands up there, hands up there. Pastor Sophie, you want to jump in there?
Well, um, yeah. So there is this saying that women are more emotional and more logical, but I found myself wanting more than just the emotion when it
Mhm,
comes to a relationship. I want the conversation. I want the intelligence. I want us to be able to communicate. I want us to be able to talk about things. And Pastor Terrence said it beautifully on our program a few weeks ago. I want to be able to be naked with you. And by naked, I mean be able to be real about things. I think one of the issues that we have is that when we're so focused on emotions, and please don't get me wrong, I'm not saying don't love or don't do all the mushy things and all the goosebumps and feelings. I think though when we put our emphasis on that, sometimes we aren't able to work through circumstances. We aren't able to work through challenges because the day that your boyfriend or your girlfriend or your spouse does something to upset you, the first thing sometimes as women we say is, oh, he don't love me, they don't love me. And we start this whole emotional drawn out process when I think love is also a form of communication where we could talk things out. Can I also say, and I think I heard Dr. Patricia say it on a previous live, that love, you cannot love somebody else if you have not learned to love yourself.
Mm-hmm.
If you have learned to become a whole, single, unique individual. And so sometimes we bring our broken selves into a relationship. And I'm not saying that there aren't areas in the relationship that we will work on. Don't get me wrong. I don't think that you need to be perfect. What I am saying is that if there are areas of our lives that need healing, it's broken, we haven't dealt with past pain and stuff like that, we haven't dealt with past pain and past trauma and past grief, you bring that into the relationship. And now there is an unstated need that has to be met. And sometimes your partner doesn't know about that need because you haven't fully expressed it, you haven't dealt with it. So for me, love is not just about the dates and the fine dining and the movie night, and all that is part of it. But being able to be whole in that relationship and bring a whole you to that relationship. So that is my thought piece on love.
All right, so that's the 20 minutes for the love talk.
That could have been the whole show.
So this
Hey,
evening, yes, Dr. Patricia.
yeah.
So this evening we're talking about life lessons, and we're talking about different aspects of life, what we learn. We just spoke about love. We will be right back, and we're gonna discuss family with Pastor Sophie's subject.
Pastor Brian, you're muted.
I was just here saying I saw BB. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
I was just here saying I saw BB's comment, and she said emotional drama. I like that.
Correct.
So I like that. So Pastor Sophie, it's over to you now, and as we speak about the other aspect of life.
So my pick was family, and if you know anything about me, for those of you who don't know, is that I grew up in a very close-knit family. I have known family to always be bedrock, pillar of strength. They're always there. I remember when my cousin passed away in let me see, that would be 8 years ago, I think, 12 years ago, sorry. When he passed away, everybody packed into our home. And literally we slept on the floor, we slept wherever, but there was such a love and such a camaraderie. And that is what family is. What I want to throw out to you guys, and Dr. Patricia may be able to bear witness with me, because when she was in Trinidad and we attended that workshop in South, there was a question posed that a young lady wanted to do she wanted to be a dancer. And her parents wanted her to be a doctor. They felt that it was more, it was a safe route to take. They felt that dancing and acting wasn't a career. And she said that she felt emotionally like she was committing emotional suicide because she wasn't true to
Mm,
herself. And
mm,
sometimes we know that the path that you as an individual might want to choose may be different from the imagination or the thoughts that your parents may have. So I want to look at family from that and how important is it as an individual that is part of a family to probably chart your own course, pursue your own destiny, to pursue something that you feel in your heart is what you're called to, and where do we balance, how do we balance that? So the in my life lesson, that is what I want to talk about. And I'm going to start with Dr. Patricia on this because she would have been there with me when we had that
Yeah,
discussion.
yeah. I remember it very, very well, Pastor Sophie. And
Uh-huh.
I remember it very well. And the young lady seemed, do you remember her age? Did she quote her
She
age?
was, yes, she was 19.
Right. Okay. So she was an adult. And I remember at the time being somewhat taken aback because what she was saying is her parents were refusing to support her, I think,
Yes,
through
yes.
university. They had said if she doesn't pursue a role as a doctor in the medical profession, they would no longer support her. And, I found that extremely sad. And the word that I used at the time was manipulative. Now, I know people might think that's a very strong word,
mhm.
and her parents love her. Of course, they care. I mean, I'm a parent as well. I have four grown children, ages between 25 and 32. They're all adults. And I've done my best to raise them with good morals, good character, good judgment. So I thought, would I really say to my child, any one of them, unless you do what I think you should do, I am not going to support you. I thought that was very manipulative. And so I advised the lady, sit down with mum and dad, say to them, mom and dad, I found my purpose, I found my calling. It might not be what you would like from me, but this is who I believe I am in the world, and I would really appreciate, your support at this time.
Right.
And I
Mhm.
hope that she would have had the courage to do so. But I just feel, as a parent myself, that's a very difficult position to put your son or your daughter in, to tell them unless that you do as we say. Um, I'm not going to support. And a lot of the majority, I mean, I was in the minority. Most people thought mum and dad,
Yes,
they
you
know what,
were.
you know. And so you have to be quite strong-minded and self-aware and being able to self-advocate, which is what I'm going to talk about in a little while, in order to go against the narrative and to speak for yourself. Because otherwise you'll go through life, you'll get to 40, 50, 60, and you'll be thinking, what happened to my life? This isn't what I wanted to be. And so, Pastor Sophie, I think it's a very good topic here that you're bringing up, and people, as you say, know what they want to do for themselves. That was a tough one, Sophie. That was a tough one.
It was, and you are right that everybody, the majority of persons in that discussion, and let me just say to bring some clarity to the situation, we're talking about persons as social workers, guidance counselors, guidance
Yeah,
officers that were part of,
professionals.
even pastors were part of that panel, and they said that nobody took into account her part where she felt like she was committing emotional suicide. And I think
No,
sometimes, a lot of times, parents may try to, and we've spoken about this before, live the dreams that they probably have through their children. Pastor
Right.
Brian, tell us from a male perspective, because we are women. So tell us from a male perspective, how would you handle something like that? And what is important in the relationship between the parent and the child? Is it that love should be the primary factor, or would you say purpose as in what they see because they may have some insight?
I believe that, as parents, we have insight. As pastors, as counselors, we have insight to persons and what they're doing and so on. But I think we ought to be mindful that somebody's journey, another person's journey rather, is not the same as our journey. I think what is most important is the value system. You can transfer value system. You can transfer the approach to life. You can teach the approach to life. But when it comes to somebody deciding who they are, you shouldn't decide for them. A parent shouldn't decide for a child. Whether I have had instances with my children where they were coming to the age where they had to choose their subjects, which would relate to the career that they wanted to be a part of, and you guide them along, but you don't tell them what to do. So how do you see yourself in the future? Do you see yourself with your own business? Do you see yourself being an athlete? Do you see yourself being a doctor? Do you see yourself being a meteorologist? Where do you see yourself? And I think that asking those key questions are important. Otherwise, you will frustrate each other. And from where you sit as a minister and stuff like that, one of the most difficult things, or one of the worst things rather, a parent can do, or somebody in authority can do to a child, or if in some cases it happens to adults, where you are trying to superimpose your opinion, or you're trying to superimpose your belief on what this person should be, and then it causes all kinds of frustration. I know families fall out with each other as a result. Families not speaking to each other as a result. Families don't go by each other as a result of such, because of persons trying to superimpose their thoughts and their opinions and the career that this child should have. Let's say, for example, if I was a doctor and my son came to me and said, "Dad, I do not want to be a doctor. I want to be a carpenter." And I look at him like, "What do you mean? A carpenter? What do you mean you want to be a carpenter? Don't you see that the lineage of your family are doctors? We are all doctors. My father was a doctor. His father was a doctor, and now I am a doctor. So you have to be a doctor. You need to continue this lineage that we are on. And the child look at me like, "No way." And I'm sure if I insist that he goes to medical school, what will happen? He will most likely drop out. Or when he finishes medical school, then he would decide, "You know what, I don't want to do that anymore." And then he would have paid all the tuition fees and all these different things to realize that, you know what, this child is not interested. So I think it is important to guide persons in the way that they should go, and not the way that you want them to go. And when you said earlier, Pastor Sophie, about a parent wanting to live out who the child is.
Yeah.
Right. That's very dangerous. And just the other day I was talking to one of my spiritual sons, and he has this particular way about him. He's a cool dude. He's cool, and he has this thing about him. So I found myself like telling him, "Why do you speak like this? Why do you dress like this? Why don't you this? Why don't you that?" And then the Holy Spirit had to give me a chat. The Holy Spirit gave me a chat, and it was like, "Why are you trying to make this boy into you? He's not you. Let him be him. Just help him to be the best him that he should be. Yeah. Help him to be the best him. Guide him to be the best him that he should be. But don't try to clone him, because I don't want another you. If I wanted another you, I would have made another you." So that was a checkpoint for me. So these things really do matter as we talk about family.
Yeah.
I agree with that, because and Tamisha said it so well here. You're essentially sabotaging the future of your child. And I like what you said, Pastor Brian. It's one thing when it's a child and the child is 8 or 9, and as a parent, you have a responsibility for guiding, for shaping, for all of that. But when it comes to adulthood, when it comes to a child that you would have groomed, and they're now into adulthood, and you realize they've reached the point of, okay, my daughter, my son is at a crossroads. Sometimes we want to choose the crossroad for them, which road you should take. And sometimes in a child's heart and in a child's mind, there is that fear that, you know what, I will not disappoint mommy. I will not disappoint daddy. So I will choose this road. And they sacrifice not just their happiness, they sacrifice their purpose, they sacrifice their destiny, they sacrifice a life that probably if as a parent you would allow them to choose, you would have seen the fulfillment of all what you taught them earlier on that path. But now the child or the adult struggles through this path that they have chosen to please their parents. I think that is something that we have to be mindful of as parents, and not just as parents, as mentors, as counselors, as pastors, as guidance officers, life coaches, and stuff like that. I think it is so important. And if you've grown up in a sheltered home, sometimes it is difficult for a parent to release a child in whatever capacity. I'm not just talking about when it comes to relationship, when it comes to a career, when it comes to let's just say you get a job in Dubai and you want to migrate. You get a job in the Cayman Islands, and there is that pressure on the child. Should I do this? How are you going to find a church when you go there? And instead of encouraging, and instead of motivating, and instead of saying, you know what, I am here as your support, I'm your support system, do what in your heart or you feel God's purposes. I think we have to be so careful that we don't superimpose our thoughts and belief systems and what we want on a child, because that goes into adulthood and now we're cramped. So I think you said it, Pastor Brian and Dr. Patricia, we reach 40, we reach 50, and we still haven't lived out our purpose because we're living somebody else's purpose. Dr. Patricia, any thoughts?
100%. And particularly working as a life coach, I cannot tell you the amount of, I work principally with women. I have a handful of men, but I basically do women's empowerment. And so I can't tell you how many women have come to me in their 40s. It tends to happen in around the 40 age, where they're looking at their career, they're looking at where they're at, and they really are beginning to feel unsatisfied, beginning to feel restless. And this is where they begin to say, what am I all about? What's my life all about? And it's asking them, when was the last time you were happy? Why are you doing what you're doing? Because sometimes we're doing things because somebody's told us to do it. We think we're supposed to do it, but that's not what you want to do. And they haven't had the confidence to actually make their own decision. So I absolutely agree that this sense of people following their own path, Pastor Sophie, Pastor Brian, I think that's essential. As I think one of the commenters here, we're sabotaging them. We didn't send them here. We are here to take care of them. We're caretakers. But they've been sent here with a plan and purpose in their own scroll, in their own destiny. And it's not for parents to decide what that should be. So I think, as you said, to guide them. So it's to encourage them, to support them. And of course, they'll make mistakes. Even if you're on your direct path, you will still make mistakes because you're a human being. And it's about supporting, holding their hands, being an ally, and being there at all times. That's how we can support our children. So yeah, I think this is a really, really good point. Pastor Sophie, yeah, it's a good one.
I want to ask a question though before we have 2 minutes, Pastor Sophie. I want to ask a question. But when, let's say you are part of a family, and do you still consider what you do that could affect your family? Because they, as much as you are an individual, should you still take into account what I do will, or at some point it will affect my family, what I do, what I don't do, what I go, what I say, even though you have your individual responsibility. Is that well, let me say, in my mind, you still have to consider your family, because you are not only representing yourself, you are representing your family. Well, what do you guys think about that?
Well, I I think that we ought to be mindful of each other in the family. Um, and we're not talking about if you want to go and do drugs and live this kind of lifestyle.
Right,
I'm
right,
talking
right.
about, right, so lay that down, right? While consideration is given, while even to some extent discussion may happen, unless the thing that the child or the adult wants to do is against the law or against, if I should say, even your moral upbringing, or you may have certain guidelines, I still believe that the child or the adult, your child, should be free to not feel pressured to be a thing,
Mhm.
not feel pressured to do that. So if I am able to sit with you and have a conversation and dialogue with you, even if your viewpoint is different from mine, even
Mhm.
if I should be able to have that dialogue. I believe the only time that I may come in direct conflict with that is if what you want to do is in you're just contrary to the word of God. Then
Okay.
I would say, okay, there may be some tug of war, but at the end of the day, you're still an adult. So you have to make your choices for yourself, contrary to the word of God or not. That is still on you. So
Mhm.
yes, there is that part where you can be mindful of them, but I may lean a little bit to more of the child, because the child is an adult and therefore is responsible for his or her own decision making. Dr. Patricia?
Yeah, yeah, and I think when we're using the term child, we're really talking about young adults here. They're not talking
Yeah.
about children that we're raising. These are
Yeah.
adults that are making decisions. And so I think at the end of the day, it's not a question of them representing me. They're representing themselves. And at the end of the day, I've done my best by my training them, by my raising them, instilling good values. And Pastor Sophie says, unless it's against the law, something illegal or immoral, it shouldn't really be an issue. So I think also learning to have your voice in your family is where you start. And if you can't have your own voice in your family, you're going to find it very difficult to go out in society, the world at large, and to say what you want and to speak how you're feeling, because
Wow.
even in your home, you're afraid to say. So I think,
That's right.
Patricia, sorry, I have to interrupt you because that's a
That's a
fantastic
big
point.
point.
Because again, we are talking about life lessons, and I think that is something worth repeating. You said if you don't have your own voice in your family, then it's difficult to
yeah,
have your own voice out there in the world.
absolutely.
Could you
Yeah.
just spend a minute
Right.
just explaining that a bit, because I think that's a crucial point.
Well, it's like Pastor Sophie was saying, because you grew up in this very close-knit family, always there to support her and build her up and encourage her. And so if that is your family, if you're in your family and you still can't have your own voice, you don't have the confidence to say, this is what I would like to do, you don't feel you're going to be shut down, how are you going to go out in the world where they're not
That's right.
supporting you? They're not your family. They're not on your side. How will you find the courage or the wherewithal to find your voice? So I think of our preparation for our children is showing them how to speak for themselves. And I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. It's also advocacy, but I do think it starts in the home. So we can respect somebody without necessarily saying, okay, I'm going to do what they tell me to because I respect them. I think we show respect by listening, by bearing it in mind, but you still have to, as Pastor Sophie said, it still comes down to you. So that's how I'd wrap that up, Pastor Brian.
Okay. All right. So we're getting ready to talk about self-advocacy and we're in work and relationship. So let's take a break and we'll be right back.
Hi, I am Brian Callender. Join me in the Living Life God's Way team every Thursday at 6:30 p.m. on Facebook and on YouTube. And in addition, we are also aired on Radio 365 Grenada. It will be our pleasure to host you in this show. We talk about life, things that matter to persons in life, and things that are necessary to be discussed, or others may not discuss them. But join us 6:30 p.m. Living Life God's Way.
All right, so we are back on Living Life God's Way. Welcome back. We hope that you're enjoying our discussion this evening. We're talking about life lessons. We spoke about love. We spoke about family. And now Dr. Patricia is going to lead these next few minutes, and we're going to talk about self-advocacy and in the work and the relationship. Dr. Patricia, over to you.
Okay, thank you so much. I feel that self-advocacy is such an important skill. And you may say, what do you mean when you say self-advocacy? It's very simple. It's really about speaking up for yourself. It's about saying what's important. It's about communicating your thoughts and your feelings. That is just speaking up for yourself, advocating for yourself. Now, I have to say, coming from my own experience, when I was much younger, I would be very quiet. In fact, if I could get throughout the day without having to go to the front, if I went to church and I wasn't called upon to do anything, I'd be so happy because I didn't like the attention. I'd be quite happy just being in the corner, doing my own thing. But I had to grow out of that because that doesn't necessarily help you in life. And also, I have this thing about me where I like to be at peace. So if somebody wants to have an argument with me, I don't often argue back. Sometimes I just let them talk and I don't let them draw my spirit. I like to keep my own individual environment. That is my natural situation. But I'm going to show you how God even showed me that I have to speak up more, even though I do, but a lot more. Mm-hmm. About 3 years ago, I had a dream. And in the dream, I was in my house in the very top floor. This person came up the stairs and knocked on my door and started to speak to me. But the very strange thing was, every time they opened their mouth to speak to me, I had something to say. And every time he looked like he was thinking about what he was going to say, I was on it. And I didn't stop. I didn't give him a word edgeways. And even in the dream, I would say to myself, what is wrong with you? This is not who you are. Just keep calm. Just calm down. But anyway, it went on for a good 5 minutes. And then eventually the person's shoulders, they slumped their shoulders and they walked back down the stairs and disappeared. Now, in the morning when I woke up, that dream was still in my spirit. My spirit was very high. And I told a few friends and they all said, that's not like you at all. So I thought, yeah, that was very strange. So anyway, I'm going to have to say this very quickly because of time. My husband had a dream 2 days later. And in the dream, somebody was remonstrating with him. But my husband was telling that person, letting them know it wasn't going to work, which is my husband's normal point of view. He doesn't accept nonsense. He will tell you how far you can go and that's it. He doesn't play. So it was much more his personality. But as he was telling me, I knew it was a spiritual attack. I knew what it was. I could sense straight away, this is something spiritual. And you were just, setting the boundaries. So anyway, I spoke to a friend. And sorry, let me finish this off. I said to him, describe the person you were speaking to. The person he described was the person in my dream. And straight away, I got it. And it was like, I'm going to sum it up. So as a person, there are things I will just put up with. I'll just put up with it because I can't be bothered to talk about it. But in the spirit, it's like you're not going to get even an inch out of me. But in the dream, when the person, they just didn't know what to say, they went away. I remember closing the door and saying to myself in the dream, wow, that felt really good. I'm going to have to do that more often. Yeah, at me, but it felt so good.
Uh,
I just want to say this is that even though I thought I'd been in control, I'm keeping calm, God was showing me, yes, but there are certain circumstances. It's not always about being calm. You have to self-advocate. You have to draw boundaries, and you have to say it very, very clearly. So spiritually, that's what I would do. But as a natural person, I had to develop those skills. And so you might think, well, I'm not very good at speaking up in public. I'm a quiet person. I don't have the vocabulary. And I would encourage you to read a lot more. Look at somebody you admire who speaks well. Take them as a role model and just practice. But for myself as a woman, I need to find my voice. I need to self-advocate because society, I don't know what it's like in Trinidad or in Barbados, so much. I wouldn't say women are second-class citizens, but we do have to fight harder for our piece of the pie. So, we have to negotiate harder for our salaries. But in that case, you have to speak up. I also think, I remember being at work one day when they decided to, I can't remember what the expression is they use, but it's like they're reviewing you, that they're watching you and they're going to study you at the end of the month to see if it's okay. And they called me into a meeting. They said, do you need somebody to sit with you? And I said, no, I don't need any. Even though they were all lawyers and barristers, it did not intimidate me because I can represent myself. And I feel that learning to have your say, learning to say how you feel, and not be embarrassed, not think, well, it's just me. Maybe how I feel doesn't really matter. Maybe it doesn't, it's not important. As long as everybody else is okay, I'll just get by. That's not always good enough. You have to learn to speak for yourself. And also, particularly for myself in the UK, as a woman of colour, we often have to have the wherewithal to self-advocate and speak up because we're often on the other end of racism, not always in your face. Sometimes there are microaggressions and you have to recognize what's going on. So self-advocacy is a really important skill. So this is why I want to put that in the conversation today, Pastor Brian, Pastor Sapphira. It's a skill that I feel we can all benefit from, male or female, person of color or not.
I want to add to that as well because I believe I exhibited that as I was growing up, and sometimes even as an adult, where I think I don't need to say how I feel about something. I can easily hear somebody say something, I feel another way, but I don't have to respond. Sometimes there's a case where it's something that may be affecting me as a person, and I may decide, you know what, it doesn't worth me saying anything. Let the person hold their opinion, and I keep quiet. And that's what you said, Dr. Patricia, is important because then from what I've been studying for the last few months, one of the things that I've been coming across is when you allow everything to stay in, it manifests some other way. So today I might decide I'm not going to self-advocate, but then tomorrow somebody comes and somebody says, "Good morning, Brian. How are you doing today?" And I'm like, "How am I doing? What do you think I'm doing? I'm doing fine. Don't you think I'm doing fine?" And the person's like, "But I just asked you how you are doing." There at that point in time, you self-advocate, but it wasn't the time to self-advocate because what in comes out in some form or fashion. So I think what you just mentioned is very, very important. Just want to throw in that little piece there.
Yeah, good one.
I guess you guys are waiting to hear from me now.
Yes.
So I grew up very vocal, extremely vocal. Maybe part due to me being in leadership. So I grew up very vocal. Not necessarily vocal for myself, because growing up I had a lot of self-esteem challenges, having been a victim of bullying and all of these things. So I think for me, it was key to know that being vocal doesn't always necessarily mean that you are self-advocating or you're speaking what you really feel on the inside. So not because you see a person always talking and always means that what they're saying is how they feel on the inside.
Right.
And I am slowly learning that it is okay to speak up for yourself, even if someone disagrees with
Yeah,
your
for sure.
stance. I think, especially as women, we have this notion, this preconceived notion that we're born into, that this is how it has to be. And guys, I'm not speaking about the extreme now. I'm talking about we have all of these things that we have to fulfill, these roles, these this, that. And sometimes we aren't ourselves. We can't speak up for ourselves. We talk a lot, but it's not really what we want to say. And I've found when we're able to self-advocate and we're able to speak up when matters, that you become more effective than just being vocal all the time. And so for me, I rather now be effective. So I watch what I say. I think before I speak. I choose which conversation I want to be participative in now, rather than just be vocal because I have a contribution to make to whatever the conversation is. So for me, it's a little bit different from how you, Pastor Brian, grew up and Dr. Patricia. I was very vocal, but not vocal about me. I was vocal about everything else.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to ask Dr. Patricia a question. So when you're representing yourself basically, and is there a strategic way you should do it? Is there a polished way you should do it, or you just release yourself and do it?
No, I don't think it's a question of it being polished. I think it's a question of it being authentic. And that is just for you to be self-aware and to say, this is how I'm feeling. This is what I think. These are my thoughts. That's all. There's no pressure. We shouldn't say, I need to sound like this person, or I need to say it a certain way. It needs to be like this. No, just be you, because people respect and they resonate with authenticity. Yeah. So just being honest and just being real. That's all you need to say, because sometimes truth doesn't have to be big. It will go straight to the target. Once we're speaking truth, it's coming from the heart, people receive it. And the final thing that I want to say about self-advocacy is also speaking up for yourself to yourself. That's important, because sometimes...
I'm sorry, I missed that one. Sorry.
Okay. Self-advocacy can also be speaking up for yourself to yourself.
Okay.
To yourself. And so it's all about being honest with yourself. Sometimes we're not honest with ourselves. For example, and it could be something very simple. It could just be that you're really tired, but you just feel, I've got to do X, I've got to do Y, I've got to do Z. I haven't got time to rest. So you're not even speaking up for yourself, where you say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to just take a half an hour. I'm going to take a break, and then I'll go back to the job. Something as simple as that is honoring yourself, honoring your feelings. You're tired, you need a rest, you need a break. So to yourself, you are honoring yourself. That's also self-care. I'm very big on self-care. So it's just about being honest with yourself about how you're feeling. And when you can be honest with yourself, it'll be a lot easier to begin to be honest with other people about your thoughts and your feelings and what you have to say. And it's just recognizing what you say, what you feel is just as important, not more than, but as important as everybody else. And that's, for me, is very, very important to bear in mind.
That's a good one. That's a good one. That's a really, really good one. That's absolutely fantastic. Because and Dr. Patricia, I think you've been in my brain, and you've been doing some research on my brain, because that's one of the things that I've been saying to myself this week, actually for the last 2 weeks, when if you are tired, it's okay to say you're tired. It's okay to say to yourself, I'm going to take a rest, or it's okay to say, I'm not doing this now, or I can't do this now. So it is self-advocacy, and it's also bringing yourself to a place of discipline and accepting certain things about yourself. I totally love that. So, ladies, we have come to the end of our session. We have you guys. I'll give you guys 30 seconds to comment on anything that we've talked about this evening that you wanted to reemphasize, and then we'll fly away for this to finish off this session. So let's start with you, Pastor Sophie.
So I think there is a common trend, or thread, I should say, throughout our discussion. And my point to you will be true to yourself. Be true to yourself in love. Be true to yourself in your family. Be true to yourself in self-advocacy. I think oftentimes we don't take ourselves into consideration. So my simple point is be true with who you are to you.
Yeah.
All right. Doctor?
I'm just going to echo that. I don't think any more needs to be said. I'll just encourage us all to be the experts in our own life. You are the expert. The word expert just means experienced. So you be the expert in your own life. You don't have to run to this person or run to the next person. What shall I do? What do you think? Have confidence in your own judgments, on your own thoughts and your own feelings, and be the expert on your own life.
All right. And with that, I don't think I need to add anything. Both of you have just spoken wisdom. So I'm just going to leave those two comments there. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you this evening for being a part of Living Life God's Way. Again, we are excited to have you be on the program and be with us. I think Dr. Patricia and Pastor Sophie, maybe next week we should look at self-advocacy so that we can go into it with great detail. I feel like if there's some solidifying that will come about, I feel like if like there are some answers and some questions and some ways, some strategies that you will be able to present yourself and so on. I think maybe we can look at self-advocacy next week. We can discuss it after and stuff like that. But that's just my thought. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being on with us and living life God's way. God bless you tremendously. We pray that God will continue to bless your life. And anytime you have any subjects that you would like us to look at, please send us a message and we'll feel free. We will want to facilitate your questions and your comments or your subjects that you would like us to look at. So thank you again for being with us, and we wish you a wonderful evening, and God bless you.
Hi, I am Brian Callender. Join me in the Living Life God's Way team every Thursday at 6:30 p.m. on Facebook and on YouTube. And in addition, we are also aired on Radio 365 Grenada. It will be our pleasure to host you in this show. We talk about life, things that matter to persons in life, and things that are necessary to be discussed, or others may not discuss them. But join us, 6:30 p.m., Living Life God's Way.
Prophetic Encounter presents our weekly devotionals starting this Sunday, 31st January, and continues every Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday from 6 a.m. to 6:30 a.m. Tune in for a time of intercession, warfare, and prophetic declarations. Mark 11:24 says, "Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe you have received it, and it shall be yours." PE, the Global Move.